All right, day 2 of sandblast and pre-prep for epoxy coating over the bare metal. Anywhere that you see the yellow tape is where there are pinholes or big holes that may have been, overlooked before the sandblast, so you really couldn't see them. But sandblast is taking everything to the bare metal, and whatever was small rust holes, it gets rid of the rust, and therefore that hole normally gets bigger. So in this situation, before we epoxy primer, since those are areas that are either gonna have to be welded or cut out and replaced, we went ahead and put tape over them so we don't have to sit there and grind our epoxy back off. And if you look at some of this right here, that's not a hole, but you see the pitting? So if the epoxy primer gets down in that pitting, it makes it hard to get it cleaned out for a good weld. So where there are areas that are true holes, we have taped those up. So when we put our epoxy on there, we will peel that when we're done, but it will give us white metal to be able to weld or repair or cut out and patch. But this is the first time I've done this on these. I've just done so many of those, and there's a lot of time needed to clean out and get the epoxy out of the pitting or out of the holes. So this time we're gonna do it this way. We're gonna tape those areas off, go ahead and epoxy it, and then we will be able to, sorry about that, Jerry.
Oh, you're good.
We'll be able to see where our areas are. Some are so fine that if we didn't do this, we may have missed them. And there's some up underneath here that you definitely don't want holes in that trough, because if there's a hole in that trough when it rains, it's gonna come down on this floorboard or on your feet. So again, wherever you see that yellow, those are areas that we found holes in. Got some rust that was slightly pitted, and once it's sandblasted or media blasted, it definitely reveals everything. So we've got some welds that we're gonna dress up that were just spotted into place. They need to be solid welded. If not, down the road, whatever filler you put in there is going to crack. So it is important to go ahead and solid weld any patches that you put in to have a better outcome or a longer lasting outcome. An inner rocker, I'm actually pretty surprised. The lower portion of that inner rocker is not as bad as normal. Now up here there was some stuff that, again, after sandblasting, it got bigger and showed itself. So there is going to be some of that stuff that will require some welding or replacing. But all in all, for a 1960 cab, this thing's in relatively decent shape. Now, it all looks smooth in the white metal after we put a black epoxy on this, because in this case, this truck's gonna be a dark green. So we use a color appropriate base epoxy primer to, in the future, if something was ever to scratch or nick off, instead of it being a white or a gray popping through that green, we've got a darker base that will help hide those if that should happen. Hopefully it doesn't, but this front seam with the roof panel is actually in really good shape. Sometimes that's one of the worst areas of rot, and this area is usually very bad. We do have some in this side. There are some that weren't apparent. There was some flaking and lifting metal before the blast, and I assume that there may be some holes popped through. And sure enough, when we got done, there are some holes that have shown themselves. But for a majority of it, pretty good cab. Like I said, in the white metal, it looks really good. Once we put our black epoxy primer on it, it has a slight eggshell finish to it. Instead of a 2K gray primer that's very dull, this will have a shine that it will then show us all of our low spots and all of our dented areas. And up in this cab corner, there's quite a few. Like I said, you can't really see them right now. But when I get done epoxying this, I'll show you that again, that it does need quite a bit of body work to make it look good again. But at this point in the stage, this is what we've got. Hopefully by this afternoon, I can take another video and show you it in the black epoxy.